coffee crew. I'm back. Hi, besties. Welcome to season 3. I know. I said probably the week after the 4th, and here we are in the ass crack of August heat. My break ended up being a little longer than I planned. Apparently, the universe has decided my life was going too according to my own schedule. And it was time to shake things up because I guess I got cocky. You may remember from last season that my husband hurt, quote, hurt his back. Well, it turns out that word definition that he tried to play with was very much wrong. In his terms, he injured his back. Yeah, he was very much injured and not hurt. So one, I was not just right that he needed to go in, probably sooner than he did. But also the husband dictionary needs to be met with a heavy dose of skepticism going forward. What started as you probably need to take a couple days off work, take it easy, turned into appointments with specialists, physical therapy, and a couple of months off work. Mix that with my kids also being off for the summer, and I have a large loaf of chaos sprinkled in with how the hell is my summer already over flavoring. The honey-do list has fully become the honey I'll do it myself list, but he's semi on the mend, and the kids are supposed to go back to school next week. So hopefully we're at least getting back to a semi-normal schedule, or what passes for normal around here. So that means I am back at my mic, having my coffee, swearing to my son that I promise I will finish his blanket at some point. And of course, talking to you about the chaos that is everyone's life these days. Now, before we get into today's episode, I want to talk about what's coming this season because it is a shift. Season 2 was fire. The whole suit of wands, passion, ambition, action, systems, power, language as a weapon. Heavy, necessary, but heavy. Now, season 3, we're moving on to the suit of cups. Cups are water, emotion, relationships, intuition, more focus on the inner life. So we're going somewhere softer and a little bit deeper at the same time. And I think after season 2 and the summer I just had and the whole entire clusterfuck that is the world we're living through, maybe the shift is right when we need it. Outside is nothing but chaos that is a wet cat. So let's focus inward and kind of keep calm what we can. We start today with something that sounds simple, but it turns out to be everything. The words that we already know, but said just a little differently. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. We all heard this growing up. It was almost like it was in the parenting handbook they handed out. Usually it was delivered by a parent who just had enough of our shit to push them almost over the edge, but not quite. And of course, most of us just rolled our eyes because we had already heard it 1,000 times. You know, it sounded like just another adult cliche. So we gave it the same amount of weight as because I said so. And my personal favorite, money doesn't grow on trees. To which the smartass in me really wanted to respond that money, paper money, was made out of paper, which is literally trees, But I didn't think said parent would appreciate the attempt at humor. Well, one of my parents would, but definitely not the other one. So you would usually just nod, think to yourself, here we go again, and immediately forget. Then this magical thing happens to us. We grow up. And as for a lot of us, not all of us, but most of us, we have our own kids. And pretty soon, you will catch these same phrases flying out of your own mouth. And that's when you realize, oh, they were right. Maybe just not in the exact way that they meant it. And it's not about politeness, really. I mean, don't get me wrong. Teenage snark does seem to add itself onto every sentence. And that's what they were talking about. But that's not what I'm talking about today. It's not use your Cinderella voice and stop talking like Ursula. It's actually something much more fundamental than that. Tone, pacing, emphasis, and framing can actually change the meaning of words without actually changing the word. You can say the exact same sentence and have it land as comfort, as criticism, as sarcasm, maybe even a threat. And it all depends entirely on how you deliver it. So let's talk about the phrase, that's interesting. It can be said with genuine curiosity. That's interesting. That's a compliment. It could also be said flatly with a pause before it. That's interesting. That's a dismissal. And said slowly with a raised eyebrow. That's interesting. This is skepticism. Now see, those were 3 completely different messages. No words were actually changed. Yet, as I just showed, they can hold 3 different meanings. I once saw a comedian, I don't remember his name, but he was like from the UK, and he was talking about how over here we use the word ass and how it can mean all these different things depending on how it was used. A truth can sound like an attack. A warning can sound like a threat. A question could be perceived as an accusation, and a fact can sound like a judgment. The reverse is also true. A hard message that was delivered with genuine care can help the listener be more receptive. But that same message, if it's delivered with contempt, will be fought, even if the message is right, because it's your tone that puts them on the defense. People don't always hear the content of what's being said, especially if that tone has already put them in a headspace where they feel like they need to defend themselves. The moment your tone triggers a defensive response, the words are gone. You have lost the message before it even landed. It doesn't matter what you said. You turn them into fighting words. It's also worth naming why the same sentence from 2 different people can also land different. Sometimes it's not just how you say it. It's the person hearing it and the history they have with the person saying it. Your body is always pattern matching. It's always asking, based on everything I know about this person, what does this probably mean? If that person is always critical of you, even a neutral statement will be heard through a filter. A trusted friend saying, we need to talk, lands differently than when, let's say, your boss says it, or somebody you're dating. Same 4 words. Completely different nervous system response. One, like your friend, has you pouring coffee wondering what the new tea is. The other, like your boss, will have your heart sink into your ass. Our delivery is always being filtered through relationship history, and that's a real thing we have to account for when we're talking to people. This is not about being nice. It's about softening. It's not about softening your truth or wrapping hard things in so much cushion that the message doesn't come across. It's more about being accurate, intentional, aware that delivery is a layer of meaning all on its own. It's making sure that the tone that you're using is matching the intention and is actually a part of the message itself. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Stitch Happens segment. I want to apologize, coffee crew, in advance. The dog is up, and Sky has decided that my lap is the best place to want to take a nap right now. So we're going to go through and see how this works. And in the wake of all this, and my husband throwing my schedule to hell over the summer, we have a new addition to the husband's, dictionary, thesaurus, encyclopedia, codex, whatever you want to call it. For new listeners, this is a collection of words, things, or phrases that mean something very specific in my husband's personal bubble and something very different in the world that the rest of us share. Since I have to live in both, I figured I'm going to use it as content for my show because I have to learn it anyway. And misery loves company. It started last season when we established that hurt means, damn, that hurt, I stubbed my toe. And injured means, yes, wife, you've bugged me enough. I'll go see why I can't walk anymore. Today we're going to add a new entry. Sunglasses. Yeah. Apparently my husband has a deeply irrational and extremely committed distaste for sunglasses, and I guess the people who wear them. Now I say this is irrational because the man has sensitive eyes. Like genuinely light sensitive eyes. Sunny days bother him. He doesn't even like going outside during the day because it hurts. So he needs eye protection in bright conditions. And yet, no matter how many times I suggest, he will not wear sunglasses. Nope, not at all. If his hat isn't good enough, he'll just stay inside, thank you very much. So I had to dig into this a little bit because it's not normal for someone with sensitive eyes to absolutely refuse to wear what would actually help them. When I finally got him to explain why, it turns out that in his head, sunglasses equals cocky asshole. That's it. A word association. He has no idea how it got there, but it's there. He doesn't think practical eye protection, not, God, my eyes hurt. The image that lives in his brain when he sees sunglasses is someone who's posturing and performing and think they're better than everyone. Someone who thinks that they look cool and wants you to know it. And he has decided that he's going to suffer with squinting his eyes and becoming a vampire before he participates in that. So I asked him, I said, well, do you think that about me when I wear sunglasses? Or, you know other people who wear them? Nope. Just strangers that he doesn't know. If they're wearing sunglasses, they're an asshole. I can't argue with the internal logic. Well, I mean, I could, but I wouldn't get anywhere. I can only observe and note from my ongoing list of things that make sense to me. Sorry, brain fart. I got kids walking around. It's entirely about the frame that he put on the object and not the actual object. Sunglasses don't have a personality. They can't be cocky. They can't be anything other than face decorations. I've occasionally used them as a headband and eye protection that they are. They are literally a thing that keeps UV rays out of your eyeballs so you can see. But the tone he has assigned to them, the meaning he's attached, well, that changes the meaning of what they are. The word or the object in this case is neutral. The meaning, well, he did that all by himself. But, I assign personalities to my crochet projects, so I guess we married well. The solution I eventually landed on was transition lenses. for his regular glasses. This way, they darken in the sun, which he accepts, because when he wakes up and puts them on or takes them off to go to bed, they don't look like sunglasses. They look like glasses. The function's identical. It just looks different from his point of view. So if you could do me a favor and not tell him that they look like sunglasses when he's outside, I'd really appreciate it, because he's making this whole process more of a pain in the ass than it needs to be already. And now my dog's moved around. See, this is why I didn't record all summer. So for those keeping track, new husband entry: sunglasses equal cocky asshole. It's energy I will not participate in, even if I must walk around blind. Transition lenses equals practical vision assistance that looks like normal glasses when I see them, and for now, it will be acceptable. Same function, different delivery, different outcome. All right, Sky went to her bucket. The dog's been taken out. Kids should be in their room for a little bit. Let's see if we can get this episode knocked out. So where does tone do the most damage? And the most good? Well, let's look at where we actually see this in real life, because it's everywhere once you start looking. In relationships, tone can be the difference between a meaningful conversation and stomp out the door, slam it, I'm going to go for a ride to cool down fight. The same question: why did you do that? Can be genuine curiosity, or why did you do that? An accusation. If they only got the actual words, they probably couldn't tell just from the words alone. The tone paints the color in which their nervous system will respond. If the tone reads as a bright red accusation, they're going to respond defensively, even if that wasn't your intention. My husband and I have had situations like this, where it's started actual arguments. Or what we actually do is we don't really argue, we just kind of ice out and stop responding for a while. So we both have learned to stop and say, this is what I heard you say. Or, what you said versus what I heard, I don't think they matched. What did you actually mean? And see, this is, I can't win today. Most of the time, what we heard is not what was actually being said. So we've saved ourselves some arguments by just slowing down, checking the signal before we respond to our interpretation of it. The key is to pause and then question. Media, this is where it plays out on the main stage, and it connects directly to what we talked about at the end of season 2. Last season, we talked about how word choice shapes the perception, which words get used for what group of people, how some words come with a built-in interpretation. Now we can add tone on top of that, and you can see the word manipulation for what it is. An anchor can read that same factual sentence with urgency, pity, skepticism, or calm neutrality, and you will feel completely different about the story depending on which one they choose. I get why a lot of older people kind of missed the news when Walter Cronkite did it. He was known for a very factual tone. He gave the facts, and he let the watcher add the rest. Nowadays, if they want you to feel afraid, urgent, sympathetic, they add the tone. They want you to feel skeptical, they add just the right amount of measured doubt to their inflection. The words can technically be accurate from a lawsuit standpoint, but the tone will steer you towards a predetermined emotional response. That whatever the people pulling the strings in the background want you to feel about the story and the people in it. In politics especially, this is deliberate. It's studied. It's used in every single interaction they have. Speechwriters, communication directors, media coaches, all of them work on delivery just as careful as they work on the actual content. Politicians have been taught and are practiced at it. Everything they say and how they say it is deliberate, and it is meant to invoke the emotions and feelings they want from the audience. A pause before key phrases forces the audience to lean in. The slow pace signals how important it is. The raised energy manufactures urgency. Words alone are neutral. Tone, inflection, and our own history paints them with colors. You want the people there excited about what you're doing and angry about the other side. In everyday conversations, the place where this creates the most chaos is actually texting. We have all had that argument or those hurt feelings because of texting. And while it's convenient, it's toneless. It's pure words and zero delivery. All outline, no color. And what happens in the absence of tone? Because we need tone to figure out what's being said and how we respond, we insert one. We base it off our own mood, our own history with the person, our own assumptions about the conversation. If I'm already anxious, a short response from my husband of "K" or "fine" can read to me as dismissive or that he's irritated with me. But if I'm in a good mood, the same response reads as "Okay, he's busy." The words didn't change. It was my filter that changed. And we do this constantly with everyone we text, which is most people in our lives most of the time, because I know I'm not alone in the fact that we all just like to sit and watch the phone ring. The skill underneath all of this, pausing before delivery. Not just asking what to say, but how. Am I calm enough to say this right now? Am I too frustrated to deliver this without my tone doing damage that I didn't intend? If I'm upset about something else, will it bleed into how I say this? Yesterday, I took the kids shoe shopping. I was very irritated already. So when I responded to my husband, it sounded like I was irritated with him, and I wasn't. I was just irritated in general. Looking at your message, will it be okay in a text, or does it need to be said out loud where the tone can be heard? Those questions are not soft skills. They are practical skills. And they can determine how well you communicate and what you're saying being heard and received. All right, coffee crew, Brewers News time. First one back from the break. So we're just going to focus on catching up on Epstein because a lot happened over the summer. It is August 12th, 2026, 9:07 a.m. If you could not tell, that it's later in the day from all the background noise. So let me give you the parts that need the most attention since we last spoke. The Zorro Ranch investigation has become its own major story. New Mexico has had an active criminal investigation into the alleged crimes at Epstein's former ranch in Santa Fe County since earlier this year. They searched the property in March. They issued a Truth Commission interim report on August 5th. The first time any government, state, or federal has ever compiled an account of what Epstein did in New Mexico over the 26 years he owned the property. It includes a timeline, documented visitors, allegations of trafficking, and an accusation that Epstein ordered the bodies of 2 girls buried on the property. The last detail has not been confirmed, but it is released in the federal files. Also on August 5th, the same day the report dropped, New Mexico's Attorney General sued the DOJ and Todd Blanche, accusing the federal government of blocking the state's criminal investigation by refusing to hand over unredacted records. The state says they were told to stand down in 2019 when federal prosecutors said they would share the evidence when their case concluded. The evidence was never returned. New Mexico is now one of the few jurisdictions still positioned to pursue any criminal accountability in this case, and the DOJ is blocking them. Speaking of the DOJ, amongst all this, Todd Blanche was still confirmed as Attorney General on August 8th in a 50-49 vote after weeks of nail biting. Now, Collins and Morawski were two Republicans who voted against him. I'm just going to insert my own personal opinion here. They tend to vote no when they know it's going to pass anyway. I think for optics, because they're up for re-election. That's my personal opinion. You can take their no votes however you want. The deciding vote actually came from Senator Cassidy of Louisiana, who agreed to support the nomination after Blanche promised to scrap the anti-weaponization fund. You know, that J6 slush fund we talked about? All Democrats voted no, and despite a lot of grandstanding about accountability, Blanche still got the job, even knowing how he has handled the files so far. It's also worth noting that what came out in the Katie Fang lawsuit, that co-conspirators actually have a loophole. And it's concerning. The DOJ stated that reasons for redacting so many of their names is because they are victims and must be protected under privacy laws. Now, protecting the victims is a legitimate reason. The problem is some of the names being hidden under that justification are not known victims. They're alleged co-conspirators who call the DOJ, claim victim status to get their names redacted. Two Republican congresswomen who viewed the unredacted file said publicly that some of the most significant redactions are people who were actively engaged in child sex trafficking and then claimed to be victims, so their names would be protected. Now, the actual victims who asked for their names to be retracted, survivor Michelle Bensky testified that she asked the DOJ to redact her name before the first release. She found her name in two places in that December release anyway. In the next release, even more information about her came out, including her phone number, former addresses, and her place of employment. When her name appeared in the third release, she said it became difficult to believe that it was accidental. The people doing the abusing got protected, while the people who survived it got exposed. Notice the language. And one last note is Rep. Raskins opened an investigation in July to whether Epstein was acting as an unregistered foreign agent. His August 5th deadline to the DOJ has passed, but I've not seen anything else since then. As always, you can verify these facts at justice.gov/Epstein or your own trusted news source. Make sure they're trusted, not naming names. Other than that, keep the pressure up. Don't let these people get away with this. These women deserve justice. They deserve protection. They deserve being heard after years of being silenced. So how do we say it right without losing ourselves? Being intentional about your delivery does not mean becoming Snow White. And this is kind of where people get lost in the sauce. They hear, watch your tone, and they think it means to silence the truth, to go soft, to stop being direct. That's not what I'm suggesting. It's about being effective as you possibly can be in communicating your message. If you use a tone that's going to put someone on the defensive, they're going to spend the conversation defending themselves or attacking you instead of actually hearing what you're trying to communicate. The message gets lost, not because it was wrong or the person didn't understand, but the delivery is what made it impossible for their nervous system to be in a place to receive it. You'll get a better response from a questioning tone than an accusing one. And it's not because you're hiding your point, but because you're giving the other person enough room to not only hear it, but think about it. The difference between adjusting your tone and abandoning your truth is this. Your truth is what you're saying. Your tone is how you're saying it. Think of information like ground meat. Tone is whether you're turning it into tacos, sloppy joe, chili, or the thing I personally can't stand, meatloaf. You tell me you're making meatloaf, I'm already going to be, ugh. So I'm not going to be as receptive. Some tacos? Well, You can keep the message completely intact and change the delivery. Again, some people don't receive meatloaf well, but you got to give them a taco. Everybody loves those. You can say the hard thing and still choose how you say it. There are 2 different levels of spice. You get to hold both of them. How much of what spice to add, that's a choice. You can read the room without abandoning the message, and that's a skill. It means paying attention and asking yourself, is this person in a place to receive this right now? Is the environment right for this conversation? You know, if you're going to lecture your kid, if they're surrounded by their friends, they're not going to be receptive. They're going to be worried about looking cool in front of their friends. Are you in the right headspace to deliver this the way you actually intended? Like the other day with shopping with my kids. Sometimes the answer is no, and you need to wait. Not because the truth doesn't need to be said, but because saying it badly is way worse than saying it later and being able to actually communicate it effectively. So as always, we got to translate this into crochet speak. Think of your tone as your hook. You can use the exact same pattern, but if you use a little tiny hook, well, you can make a project that will fit in your pocket. But if you use a large hook, well, that bitch is going to take up half the bed, and it is a pain in the ass to deal with every time you want to make the bed. The instructions and the pattern did not change. What changed is the tool. So your tone is your hook. The pattern is your truth. So read the room and decide, what suits me best? A pocket-sized version or a human-sized version? They both have their places. It's up to you to learn which one when. And as always, when talking about communication, it applies to the way you speak to yourself. And we touched on this in season 2 when we talked about Earl, which is my name for my self-doubt, self-loathing voice. Earl does not just use bad words. Oh no, he uses a specific tone. A low, certain, permanent, why did you think you could tone. The tone of verdict rather than observation. So when you catch yourself in a self-critical thought, it's worth asking not just what you're saying to yourself, but how are you saying it internally? Would you say it that way to someone you love? Would you talk to your kids that way? If the answer is no, you're allowed to adjust the tone. Keep the truth, change the hook. And here's where season 2 and 3 connect. Last season was about language protecting power. Words as weapons, as shields, as systems of control. This season starts with language protecting connection. Same tool, different purpose. And your awareness of which one you're doing. Are you building walls or building bridges? And that will affect how you communicate with everyone, especially yourself. All right, my people, welcome to the first Shuffle Happens of season 3. And we're going to start somewhere beautiful. As always, the art, I'm using the deck of Sacred Kingdoms, and the art is amazing. I got it off Amazon if you want to go pick it up. And I hope I do it justice when I describe it to you. This week's card is the Sort of Cups. And of course, we begin with the Ace of Cups, the beginning of something, our inner journey. You know I like to mellow you out before I send you out into the world. So take a nice, deep breath and slowly let the stress of the week go. Close your eyes if you can. We don't want no car accidents. And let the scene take you away. The scene is in the center of a creek inside a forest at night. The water ripples gently. Fireflies drift and pulse through the air around the forest. You can see the grass and the flowers on the banks, the trees rising in the background. It's quiet and alive all at the same time. In the center of it all is a large golden cup. The cup is as tall as the banks themselves. It's covered in intricate details. Vines climbing the side speaks to something old and significant. Someone took a great deal of time and a great amount of skill creating the cup. And from this cup rises a warm, glowing light. Flowers are growing out from the inside, pushing up towards the night sky. A soft fog rolls around the base of the scene and into the forest. It's not thick enough to obscure, but just enough to soften the edges of the trees and make everything feel slightly beyond the everyday. It's like the energy of the cup is meeting the energy of the forest, and something is happening between them. Calm, a presence, a beginning. Upright, the Ace of Cups is a new emotional beginning. It's the moment before. The cup is full and it's waiting. The light's rising, the flowers are reaching. This card shows up when something is opening, a new relationship, a new creative period, a new way of feeling at home in yourself. It's not a guarantee of the destination, but it's an invitation to begin, to take that first step, to feel instead of just think, to let something matter, to receive. Reversed, the cup is asking, where are you blocking the beginning? Where are you holding the cup closed, protecting yourself from something that might actually be good? It might actually matter. This cup reverse is not about the absence of the cup. The cup's still there. It's still full. It's still lit from within. It's just being held sideways, turned away. The question is, what would it take to turn that cup upright? What would it take to let yourself receive what is being offered? The forest is quiet. The fireflies are moving. The cup is full. And this is where we start season 3. So take a deep breath, take this with you, and give yourself permission to take that first step. All right, coffee crew, we did it. We managed to finish despite the chaos that is my household right now. We took our first steps of season 3. The fire was season 2, and the water now belongs to us. So we're going to wash away the ash and let the cleansing begin. So some milestone updates while I was off. And yes, I know I was off longer than I said. I'm sorry. Our Apple Podcast followers broke 100. And I guess behind the scenes, that puts us into like the actual show category instead of some weird bitch at home with a microphone and has a hobby. Our total downloads broke 3,000. And even with me being off over a month, we had almost daily downloads the entire time. And I know we did because I have OCD and it makes me check every day. So even with nothing new uploading, people are still listening. And I want you to know that I saw it and it means everything to me. You didn't forget me. You're still here. Thank you. Bring a friend next time. Let's keep this circle growing. I also want to share something I'm excited about for this season. You may have heard me mention before that I saw the psychic from Akron. And the first time I saw him, he kind of pushed me into starting the show. His name is Brian, and his shop is called The Healing Brew. They have some online, you can schedule online sessions. So even if you're not from Ohio, you can get a reading with Brian. I also managed to see him during the break, and he agreed to come on to be a guest. And like I said before, I don't want it to be like a formal interview. It's more like grab your coffee, what's new with you, and we're just going to sit down, bullshit, and you get to tag along. I think he'll be a great fit for the cup season, and I think you're going to love him. So he's going to be one of the guest spots I'm planning for the season, sprinkled in with our regular episodes. I'm hoping to keep the seasons at 20 episodes and kind of do like before, where I end the suit the last episode. And on social media, I know, my reading with Brian was literally telling me that I need to do more social media work. And I swear I plan to, I do. I plan to listen to The Man Who Protected the Podcast. I have ideas. But as you can tell, just recording the show with everybody home and bored right now is chaos. So it's keeping them as ideas for now. But I promise I'm trying. Our Instagram is coffee.crochet.conversation. Facebook, just put coffee, crochet, and conversation in the search and it should pop up. Come and find us. I'm going to try to be more consistent. I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on the word try. And as always, Coffee Crew, keep your stitches sassy, your coffee strong, and your spirit grounded.